Good evening, everyone. This is Melissa Thomas of Florida National News coming to you with the evening news rundown for your Wednesday, August 26, 2020. Just like that, August is already wrapping up for us. But as always, thank you guys for tuning in. It is always a pleasure to bring the latest news to you guys. As always, we like to extend an invitation to any business owners, anyone looking to advertise or sponsor any of our Florida National News segments. We've got 5 different shows to choose from. So if you're interested, just shoot us an email at ads@floridanationalnews.com to find out more. Now, as always, guys, we like to start with the latest COVID-19 reports globally here in the United States and in the state of Florida. So globally, the World Health Organization is reporting over 23.7 million confirmed cases and over 815,000 confirmed deaths. Here in the United States, Johns Hopkins University has reported that we have passed the 5.8 million mark now, and we are at over 179,000 confirmed deaths. Here in the state of Florida, the Department of Health is reporting over 608,000 confirmed cases and over 10,700 confirmed deaths. We continue to keep you guys abreast of what's going on. Jumping into our world story, South Korea is back under the lens. They have 52 new cases, to be specific, that was clustered in one specific Starbucks cafe. So very interesting news update where that was concerned. What's happening in South Korea? You guys remember we had been reporting that early on during the pandemic, they had done a good job of bringing their numbers down and lowering the curve. However, when things began to reopen, new cases began to reappear. And correction on the number, that number for today is actually 56. In the Starbucks that was located in Paju. Many of the customers were not wearing masks, and it was a poorly ventilated space, which likely contributed to the spread of COVID-19, according to local news reports there. The 4 employees, however, were not infected, and experts are saying that it's likely because they were wearing masks during their shifts. Health officials said that the outbreak originated from a person that was infected with the virus who sat in the cafe earlier in the month next to the air conditioning system, which dispersed the aerosol particles throughout the space, according to the news report. The virus also could have spread as people touch contaminated surfaces such as tables and door handles, they're saying. Jung-Eun Kyung, who's the chief of Korea's Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, said that many of the visitors didn't wear masks and there seems to be no proper air ventilation at the store, even though air conditioners were in operation due to humid weather. And as I mentioned earlier, South Korea has had more success than many other countries in containing the virus back earlier this year, but it did see a resurgence this summer. So we'll continue to keep you guys abreast of what's going on there. And again, as we always say here at Florida National News, continue to guard your hands, wash them, sanitize them, glove them, wear your mask, and practice safe social distancing. Now, jumping here to the US, very similar to what you guys heard us report yesterday about Florida schools, across the US, we're seeing the same thing. College campuses are now seeing an increase in COVID-19 cases. Again, we continue to keep our exhortation going, continue to keep yourself safe, guys. The University of Alabama on Monday reported more than 550 people across its campuses had tested positive for COVID-19 since it resumed in-person classes back on August 19th. Most of those infected were students, faculty, and staff at the university's main campus in Tuscaloosa. Now, citing a, quote, dramatic increase in coronavirus cases on campus, the mayor of Tuscaloosa issued an executive order on Monday ordering bars to shut down for the next 14 days, placing restrictions on other establishments as well. He said, Kelly Reinhardt, who is the university's vice chancellor of communications, said, quote, many students have tested positive for COVID-19, have chosen to go home to isolate. Now, in another college campus, University of Southern California, they resumed education almost entirely online on August 17th. On Monday, that university said that more than 100 students at the University Park campus in LA were in a 14-day quarantine after exposure to the virus there. Now, the university said in a statement, USC student health has received an alarming increase in the number of COVID-19 cases in students in the University Park campus community. And the statement added that all cases were related to students in off-campus living environments. Jumping to the state of Ohio, Ohio State University, classes resumed there on Tuesday this week, issued more than 200 interim suspensions for students following a string of large parties where health and safety rules were largely ignored, according to media reports there. And last week, the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill canceled in-class instructions after positive cases of COVID-19 had increased there dramatically. So guys, please continue to be careful. Now, jumping here to the state of Florida, COVID-19 hospitalizations have increased as testing begins to drop. You guys heard us talk a little bit about that yesterday. So here in the state of Florida, things are starting to take an interesting turn. Here's a bit of an update for you. For the 10th straight day, Florida reported fewer than 5,000 new COVID-19 cases, but they did see a spike in both deaths and hospitalizations. And you guys hear the numbers that we report every day. Now, the Florida Department of Health on Tuesday reported 2,673 new infections across the state. Now, since the virus first hit Florida back in March, the Department of Health has reported over 605,000 total confirmed cases. And public health officials are, of course, keeping a close eye on new case numbers as students begin the school year. The Central Florida school district leaders are relying on the data after the judge yesterday, of course, ruled the state's blanket order to require schools to teach students in the classroom as unconstitutional during the pandemic. But of course, the judge's decision allows local school district leaders to determine whether or not it's safe for them to reopen their schools. Now, Florida also saw a spike in deaths, according to the Department of Health, reporting 183 new fatalities from Tuesday into today, which is more than double the fatalities reported the day prior. So it's important to note that new COVID-19 deaths are often delayed in reporting to the state, and newly reported deaths could have occurred within the past few weeks, which is why we always aim to keep you guys updated. In a bit of positive news, a bit of silver lining, for the 12th day in a row, the rate was below 10% in Florida in terms of the positivity rate. And of course, the goal, according to the World Health Organization, that baseline that they feel is safe is 5% or less. Now, that increase in hospitalizations we're talking about, the Department of Health reported 442 new patients on Tuesday. Since March, over 37,000 people have been hospitalized in some capacity due to COVID-19. Now, stay tuned, guys. We're going to take a quick commercial break, and we're going to come back with some more news stories for you. Stay tuned.
At Duke Energy, we deliver electricity and so much more, like free home energy assessments, rebates for energy-saving improvements, payment options to help you better manage your budget, and even bill credits for helping the community use less energy. So no matter what you're doing, we can help you make better energy choices every day. It's just another way we bring power to your life. How much can you save?
All right, guys, welcome back to the Evening News Rundown. And jumping into your U.S. story, more U.S. news for you. Houston residents have been urged to stay off the roads in order to make room for evacuees for the upcoming Hurricane Laura. You guys have likely been hearing stories about the hurricane. This is now a Category 3, so this is something very serious and urgent. Now, there's several areas that are being evacuated right now, including the communities of Seabrook, League City, Texas City, Santa Fe, Lamarck, Dickinson, and Hitchcock in Zone A. Zone B includes Clear Lake, Anahuac, Wallaceville, Mont Bellevue, Baytown, LaPorte, Friendswood, Alvin, Hillcrest, Liverpool, Danbury, Angleton, Brazoria, Lake Jackson, Clute, and Richwood. All of these areas in Zones A and B in Harris County, they're being issued voluntary evacuations effective immediately ahead of Hurricane Laura's arrival. Harris County Judge Lena Hidalgo issued that evacuation order. So officials additionally advise anyone who doesn't need to evacuate to stay off the roads in order to avoid congestion and traffic jams for those who have to move inland. Non-essential employees have been sent home actually at 2 p.m. today. Houston Mayor Sylvester Turner urged everyone to get off the road by 8 p.m. Texas time tonight, if not sooner. As I mentioned before, Hurricane Laura is set to be a Category 3 storm and is expected to make landfall between tonight and tomorrow morning. So those in the Texas area, please continue to be careful, particularly the Houston area. While the city of Galveston issued a mandatory evacuation on Tuesday for all of its residents, The city of Houston and Harris County leaders are urging residents to stay off the road. Tuesday evening, Governor Abbott directed Texas DOT to waive all tolls along the agency's portion of SH 99 and Grand Parkway starting at 7 p.m. The governor said, quote, as Hurricane Laura approaches Texas, this waiver will ensure that Texans are able to evacuate efficiently ahead of the storm. I urge Texas in the area to continue to take all necessary precautions as Hurricane Laura nears the coast and heed the guidance of local officials. Now, officials are getting people to head north and away from the coastal areas. So I-10 is one of the few freeways that will implement contraflow as a last resort for evacuations. Local officials are urging residents to fill up their gas tanks now, very similar to what we would do here in the state of Florida. Now, Hidalgo, the judge said, this is not Harvey, this is not Imelda, this is not Allison, this is Laura. Every storm is different, and we urge folks not to use any prior storm as a template for what or will happen. What we need to do is prepare for the worst. Now, there's also a suggestion that if you have supplies, you have those supplies on standby and have food that won't spoil, so have non-perishable foods in the event of a power outage. And of course, much like the state of Florida, while Texas is dealing with preparation for Hurricane Laura, there is also still COVID-19. So everyone having to stay indoors and in close proximity to each other, everyone continue to stay careful in that area. Now, jumping over here to the state of Florida, a recent report announced that University is faring a little bit better than Walt Disney World right now amid the pandemic. So that's a bit of good news for Universal, doing a little bit better. Now, the playing field in Central Florida's theme park wars, if you will, has been somewhat leveled given COVID-19, given everyone having to close down and then gradually reopen. But analysts from the Deutsche Bank said that they looked at proprietary geolocation data to make those estimates, to make their report. The analysts say that Universal Orlando is seeing a, quote, uplift in admissions, especially on Saturdays, to be specific. Saturday attendance is down 64% from 2019 crowds, but it's still the best figures that Universal has seen since its reopening. As for Disney, the analysts are saying that it's operating at roughly 80% less than last year, with Epcot and Animal Kingdom outperforming Magic Kingdom and Hollywood Studios. Now, as for why Universal is performing better than Disney, theme park expert and blogger TJ Mascaro is saying a big part of Disney's usual magic is unavailable right now. He said, quote, you go to character meet and greets, you go for the parades, you go for the shows, especially with the fireworks. However, given COVID-19, all of those things have been put on hold, all of those. So Mascaro was saying the fact that Disney is requiring reservations, not allowing park hopping, and has not reopened its water parks may also be among the reasons why it's not quite attracting as many guests as Universal is right now. So very curious and very interesting. And speaking of Universal, not related to the lower third there, but Governor Ron DeSantis was here at Universal earlier today and was part of a roundtable, and he actually announced that Florida is considering being part of another funding initiative that, as requested or put in the application to the federal government to receive additional unemployment benefits of $300 per week. And this would apply to those whose unemployment benefits ended on or after August 1st. So we'll continue to keep you guys posted on those updates as well. In the meantime, we're going to take one more quick commercial break and then come back with your business and sports story. Stay tuned, guys.
At Taco John's, you can expect one thing, so good, as in quality ingredients used in tacos and burritos made just for you. Every single bite.
So good.
Expect nothing less at Taco John's.
All right, guys, welcome back to the Evening News Rundown. In our business story, if you are on the East Coast, Brevard Zoo has announced that they're offering free admission for children in September. So that's a bit of fun for parents. If you're looking to have a fun day out with the kids, the Brevard Zoo has got your back. According to their website, they're offering kids 11 years of age and younger for a free zoo ticket when accompanied by a paying adult. So this offer is valid for the entire month of September. So if you're looking for a fun day out, there you go. They said that 3 children can receive free admission per adult. And that is, this deal cannot be combined with any other discount. So once you're using this one, this is it. All adults must present a state-issued photo ID in order for it to work. Timed entry tickets must be purchased in advance and can be done on the Brevard Zoo website. Of course, the zoo, much like any other open venue, has several safety measures in place to keep guests safe from COVID-19. All guests, including members, will be required to reserve time entry tickets online prior to arrival to limit the number of entrants per hour, of course, maintaining social distancing. Guests 7 years of age or older must wear a mask or a face covering in order to enter the zoo. And certain areas and experiences, including paws on and some animal feedings, will be closed or unavailable. Of course, no physical contact. And in order to maintain social distancing guidelines, guests are required to maintain a 6-foot distance from other parties and follow a one-way path throughout most of the zoo. Makes sense, right? But if you are in the Brevard County area, or if you're close enough to travel there and are looking for a fun outing for the kids, that's a great option for you. Now, jumping into our sports story, going back to college sports, the AAC, the American Athletic Conference, has said that all the non-football sports that they're going to be doing will be moved to the spring. Obviously, we know the hoopla about college football, but with regards to its other sports, they have decided to go ahead and move them to the spring. They made the announcement on Tuesday. The majority of its fall sports, they're going to move those back until spring. The decision affects men's and women's soccer and women's volleyball, and it could include cross country, pending further NCAA clarification. AAC Commissioner Mike Oresco said in a statement, quote, "We remain committed to providing our student athletes a quality experience and competing at the highest level of intercollegiate athletics. We were prepared to conduct competition in the fall in women's and men's soccer and women's volleyball, but moving to the spring was in the best interest of our student athletes, as it will align our schedules to allow our teams to compete for national championships." The conference made the announcement in the wake of the NCAA Division I Board of Directors' decision to move fall championships to the spring due to the health and safety concerns as it relates to the COVID-19 pandemic. It will release a revised schedule for the affected sports at a later date. And of course, we here at Florida National News will keep you up to date with that, particularly our lovely Casey Hudson with the FNN Sports Take. Now, ladies and gentlemen, it is Wednesday, so we do have the lovely Angel Perry, who is the Executive Vice President for the Communications Workers of America, Local 3108 here for hashtag WorkerWednesday. How's it going?
Good.
How's it going?
How are you? It's going good. How are you?
Doing good, doing good. So obviously, you and I have to talk about this very, very serious topic, this very serious conversation about the death of Salaythis Melvin, and basically the kind of the timeline of the release of the videos as well. And just give us your thoughts and your perspective on how things should be handled going forward, especially given the unrest that we've already seen nationally in terms of law enforcement and the use of excessive force. Kind of talk to us about that.
Absolutely. So first and foremost, I want to extend my condolences to the Melvin family. He was only 22 and had nothing to do with the arrest that had already taken place on Florida property. The assailant and his girlfriend was already captive, and we are still asking questions on how and why this one officer with no camera finds himself shooting at someone at least 3 yards away. Talking about the timing of that video. So the first video wasn't released until after the polls closed. That's suspect. The timing of that, because John Mina is running for his office again. He is an elected official. Then they put out a press release with no video, but the police report says that the 22-year-old Mr. Melvin had a weapon. How is someone 3 yards away from you? How do you can see a weapon? Oh, well, he turned around, but they didn't find anything. They didn't correct the original statement. He had nothing to do with the arrest or who they were looking for. So if the policy says that you are supposed to protect the civilians at large, how do you end up shooting one? So there's a lot of questions. There's a lot of questions.
Absolutely. And then one of which is, and one of the attorneys for the family actually brought this up, if you see someone running, how does that signal you to shoot? Even if it's someone that you suspect of criminal conduct, how does that signal you to discharge your gun? And then, of course, the family also asked what happened to the tasers. Like this is a
Well, he wasn't even close enough for a taser.
right.
So that first video was released shortly after the polls closed. There's actually 6 in total, and the rest of them weren't released until later in the week, or Thursday or Friday. No matter what you look at it, it makes no sense. But of course, the narrative is, let's bring up history. Let's bring up, oh, he's this, he's that. What's that have to do with the scenario at the point that this person with a badge decides to take his weapon and, discharge bullets into the back of a 22-year-old man? Let's talk about that.
Right.
So there's already been very dissatisfaction with John Mina. Just some educational FYI. If he's reelected in November, you can recall his election and let the other candidates rerun for that seat. So that is an option. That's a legal option for everyone that is a voter to recall an elected official.
Got you. And then where do you feel, what is the next step at this point? Because obviously the boiling point, or the latest boiling point, was Floyd. When he was killed, the knee on the neck and everything. There was a national and kind of global outrage there. And we started to see legislative changes in certain state governments. We started seeing local changes. Certain cities started to change some of their budgets. But with each of these new incidents, like what is the next constructive step?
To continue with the pressure. So registration for being a voter is important. Actually knowing who your elected officials are, getting that first email to their offices, introducing yourself and what are your community concerns. Get involved with communicating with your elected officials. Make them aware that you are watching. You are their boss. Once you've hit the ballot, once you've gotten and casted your vote, you are the boss of these elected officials. They are not your boss. So talk about it in your family, social media. If there are events for peaceful protest, participate. They can't get away with something if you are actively involved with the things that help apply pressure for the change. And there's not going to be a change if you're just hoping that it will go away. Obviously, it's not going to go away. We had Jacob a couple of days ago, who's now paralyzed because someone wanted to grab his shirt and discharge 7 bullets in his back. And then they want to bring up, again, his history. What's that have to do with the scenario presently? So in the United States, either we're for street executions or we're not. I mean, there's one thing if an officer is self-defense and they're protecting themselves, but if everything's pretty casual and you're discharging your weapon anyway, that's not self-defense. That's just a street execution. You decided that that person doesn't need to breathe the next 5 minutes. That person with a badge decided to kill someone and murder them. That's not self-defense.
Right. And what are your thoughts in terms of the funding for law enforcement departments, whether that's local police or sheriff's offices?
So one, there is no community that just doesn't want security and safety. That's
right.
one. But what we're finding is a lot of departments are not paying officers enough, for one. A lot of the police unions are happily taking police dues, but they're not ensuring police pay reflect where the officers live, that they are well-rounded in their work environment, that they have what they need to be healthy and safe and be able to do their job correctly. So what a lot of communities are doing is they're rebudgeting some of the funding, because you don't need an armored tank. You don't need a drone with HD 4K video that costs $2 million. You don't need that. You know, you're not in, you know, a third world country. This is supposed to be United States. So yes, the officers need funding. They need the proper gear, but there's some exorbitant cost that really is ridiculous. So some of the funding needs to go. Some of the ideas are a officer that has social work training. So there would be a side-by-side call to domestic situations where you have your armed officers and then you have a social worker. So if the person that's being called happens to have mental illness, that there's ways to de-escalate, and the person is actually educated and certified in assisting with a citizen that actually just needs mental health evaluation and assistance, instead of just being shot because they don't know what to do. So the funding needs to just be looked at and tweaked. Nobody wants to zero out a police precinct and there's no police officers. Nobody's saying that.
Right. And that's been one of the bigger arguments, which was a broad brush, if you will.
Yeah.
I don't know that anybody's necessarily
nobody wants to not be safe. That's easy to throw that in there just so you're not having the conversation. If you're not willing to have a legitimate, uncomfortable conversation and really look at where the funding's going, then you're disingenuous.
Well said. Very, very well said. All right, guys. Of course, Angel Perry, the Communications Workers of America Local 3108 EVP, Executive Vice President.
Thank you.
Always a pleasure. Thank you so much for being here.
Absolutely. My pleasure. And thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. All right, guys, stay tuned as we wrap up with our entertainment story for the day. All right, we will be round back.
You need time to stand still or get up and go. You need to unplug or to reconnect with those who matter most. You need to kick back, to dive in, to have your moment in the sun. You need a palace to lift your spirits, to taste the finer things. You need room to feed your soul, to remember why you travel. You need Lowe's. The legendary Lowe's Don Cesar Hotel, St. Pete Beach. The room you need.
All right, guys, welcome back to the Evening News Rundown as we wrap up with your entertainment story. And it looks like the Powerpuff Girls are coming to the CW, but live action. So a bit of exciting news for those who love that show and love the characters. The network is developing a live action update of the Cartoon Network's Powerpuff Girls with the three titular superheroes now as young adults. So this actually ties in very well with a lot of the CW comic book series or comic book adaptations that we've been seeing. A lot of the series have involved young adults and kind of, a little bit folks in their 20s. So this should be very, very intriguing. The adaptation of Craig McCracken's original show comes from writers Heather Rainier, who's also responsible for Veronica Mars and Sleepy Hollow, and Diablo Cody and mega producer Greg Berlanti. In the live action update from Warner Brothers TV, Blossom, Bubbles, and Buttercup, that's the trio, used to be America's pint-sized superheroes, and now they are disillusioned 20-somethings who resent having lost their childhoods to crime fighting. So Rainier and Cody, who also work together on Juno, One Mississippi, and the United States of Terra, they are writing the script and will executive produce with Berlanti, Sarah Schlechter, and David Madden of Berlanti Productions. The project combines several elements of the CW's development strategy, developing shows based on well-established intellectual property, such as the Powerpuff Girls, from one of its parent companies, aka Warner Media and Viacom CBS libraries, a superhero element, which is what we talked about, and the CW is filled with them. Take your pick: Supergirl, Arrow, The Flash, Legends of Tomorrow. You guys know the drill. And of course, Berlanti, whose company is responsible for 8 series on the network right now, which is among 18 overall from Berlanti Productions. Now, a little bit of history. The Powerpuff Girls originally aired from 1998 to 2005 on the Cartoon Network and spawned a feature film in 2002. A reboot of the show, which was developed by Nick Jennings and Bob Boyle, ran for 3 seasons, starting back in 2016. So if you are a cartoon fan, a superhero fan, this continuation and adaptation should be very interesting since it is live action. And we're going to get to see the 3 girls and how they're grappling with life away from their crime fighting days. But this should be very interesting. In the meantime, guys, that does it here for us at the Evening News Rundown. If you haven't already, be sure to like, follow, share, subscribe, all that fun stuff. You guys know the drill. You'll find us at Florida National News on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. And on YouTube, be sure to click the little bell icon to get all the notifications for all of our shows. And as a quick reminder, for anyone looking to advertise or sponsor one of the Florida National News segments or one of our shows, just shoot us an email at ads@floridanationalnews.com to find out more. In the meantime, guys, thank you so much for tuning in. It is always a pleasure. I am Melissa Thomas. Have a great rest of your Wednesday afternoon.